Frequency Radio with your hosts, Steve and Alex.
And welcome to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. Back for one more show before 2017 ends. Alex, how you doing, man?
How are you?
Not bad. You were silenced, by the way. I just wanted to let you know because apparently we had a lot of complaints about you not saying not much.
By who?
Oh, what do you mean by who? The listeners.
Come on, you got a collage of it already.
Well, yeah. Well, we're going to unveil that in the new year. The collage will be in the new year. So we're going to say, look at not much.
Not much.
Not much. Okay, so what's new?
Not much.
There you go. What have you been up to, man?
Like I said, not much.
Besides the not much bit.
Yeah, exactly. No, just Christmas stuff, really. Seeing friends and family and whatever. Trying to get it all in before the Christmas season, before everything goes crazy.
I didn't think Satanists, sort of observe that sort of Christmas spirit.
No, we don't, but my family does.
Just kidding. Have you got all your shopping done?
Most of it, yes.
Most of it.
Yeah.
Well, what's going on? You need. Well, it's still early, I guess. Right?
Yeah, you got time.
I mean, for a guy, it's early, right?
It is, yeah, exactly. You gotta wait for the last few days.
I mean, you're not a guy until you're like the last few days, if not the last day before everything closes up and everything else, and bang.
I'm just gonna do my shopping online.
Yeah, that's a big thing now. Most people I remember for years, I wouldn't buy anything online. Are you nuts? It's not safe.
Yeah, I still have family members that say that.
Yeah, but now it's like, wow, it's convenient.
Because it is.
It is convenient, I know that, but until they, ship the wrong thing to your house.
It's never happened to me yet.
Well, no, not yet. That's the key word, yet.
Exactly.
But you never know, it might happen. No, I mean, I've been doing it for years, and it's convenient, depending on what you're, I guess, looking to buy online. A car would be different. I don't know. Would you buy a car online?
I don't think so.
Exactly.
My credit card doesn't have the room for that.
Would you go buy your groceries online? Like, I mean, meat or dairy or vegetables?
No.
Why not?
Because I need to see them. Make sure that we're getting a good quality stuff. Because last thing I want is for some rotten veggies that come thrown up my door.
Okay, but the same could be said for a lot of other things that people like conveniently buy online, though.
Such as?
Oh, a T-shirt, maybe.
It's not going to come with mold
a T-shirt. I asked for size large or medium, and I got an extra large or a small.
Well, that depends on which country it's made from.
or it doesn't have the logo I looked for, asked for.
Well, that's what can you say?
I mean,
at least you're not gonna die from like a wrong size T-shirt.
So what are you asking for Christmas? What do you want Santa to bring you?
Let's see, $1 million.
Oh,
even that's not enough.
Who does want
$1
million? $10 million. I mean, come on. You got to go bigger than.
Oh yeah, considering the house prices are fucking ridiculous here.
Oh, it's ridiculous indeed. I mean, you say you bought. What for 250,000 like to what is it like not even 5-7 years ago. Now you're looking at 650.
Are you kidding me? The houses in Toronto are going for close to $1 million.
Well, that's in Toronto. I'm just saying, the surrounding areas are it's even worse. It's insane.
Anyway, let's not talk about depressing stuff here.
What, house prices?
Yeah.
Why is it depressing? I mean,
because
you must be sitting on a lump of gold there.
Well, hey, you never know. I might be.
Anyways, we are here for our last show of 2017. Our mid-season hiatus, season 10. And you know what? I'm really, really, really happy to have the host of the very popular true crime podcast, True Crime Garage, Nick and the Captain, on this evening.
Yes.
And after break, we're gonna obviously talk about some of the cases that they've covered, and how it all began, and all that stuff towards the true crime arena, which is like, some of the cases are just insane. Like, obviously sad, but the circumstances of some of these cases, you try to wrap your mind around it, and you go, some of these people are just insane. Like, well, beyond insane.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look,
I've always said this planet needs a cleansing.
Well, yeah, but I mean, look at just recently for those in the Toronto area.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you've noticed, but there's something weird going on now. We're in a certain neighborhood of Toronto. 3 women. The third female has gone missing. The first 2 have shown up murdered.
Yeah.
And now a third one has gone missing in that same area. Hopefully.
Which area is this?
The Church Wellesley.
Oh yes.
Area.
Yes.
Now
it's not just women. A guy or 2 also went missing as well.
Yeah. So hopefully this latest missing female turns up okay. I mean, you don't want to hear the worst, obviously.
Yeah.
So let's hope for the best. Anyways, if you want to follow us on Twitter, it's at Dark Discussion. Facebook is Nocturnal Frequency Radio in the search box, or www.facebook.com/Nocturnal Frequency Radio. And of course, our BBM group.
Yes, sir.
Right? Nocturnal Frequency Radio. And that's still like stagnantly climbing.
It's getting there.
It's
One rung at a time.
One, yeah, but it's up there. What would you say? Like 1,300 or something like that?
Over 1,300.
Over 1,300 now. Wow, that's cool, man. And like usual, you're constantly updating with some pretty intriguing stories.
Whenever I find them, yeah.
And they're getting, I don't know. Are you finding they're getting harder?
You know what? What I'm finding is it's becoming repetitive, unfortunately. But that's the way it is with the paranormal most of the time, right? You hear the same stories over and over again.
Yeah, but is it just the paranormal? Is it just
I don't post just paranormal stuff. I do post other stuff as well. But I try to keep it with a similar theme, right? Yeah. So, and that's what keeps it like repetitive, unfortunately. But who knows? Maybe in the new year I'll try to explore different things.
True. Okay, we're going to take our break here, and when we come back, we're going to have Nick and the Captain on, the hosts of the True Crime podcast, True Crime Garage. And again, if you want to check out more, listen to some of their podcasts, the archives, everything else, go to www.truecrimegarage.com for more there. So hold tight. We'll be right back. You're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network.
When you've had it up to here,
his hand is way above his head,
with the commercials and the same 5 songs again
and again and again and again and again and again and again.
There's only one place to lock it down. New Visions Radio. No commercials, the best talk, and the best new music all over the world. NewVisionsRadio.com.
Beyond, the television series that redefines the paranormal. Academic, scientific, and medical opinions that, combined with expert testimony, provide new insight into 48 phenomena that challenge the frontiers of human understanding. The Beyond series was originally broadcast on television in Canada and the USA. Now the series is available throughout the world on Hulu, Amazon, and TV Tibi. In Canada, it can be seen through Amazon On Demand. Come with us and take a step into the unknown lands that lie beyond. More information at beyondtheseries.com.
This is Keith Age, and you're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio. Enjoy.
And welcome back to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. And I don't know, Alex, what's your interest in the true crime arena? Do you have... Come on.
I do listen to some true crime, yes. I do listen to some of it.
Well, not so much. No, not so much just listen to it, but I mean, read about it. What's your interest in? Any, if any? I mean,
my interest my interest is simply like how stuff like this can happen and not. How do I put this bluntly? But how it can still happen in today's day and age. You know what I mean? Like how people can still be the way they are. And this is why, like, off air at the beginning, before we started the show, I said this planet needs a cleansing, because to have shit like this happen all the time and have people kill other people for apparently no reason or for some twisted reason, it boggles the mind.
Is there a case that sort of sticks out in your mind? Like, it doesn't necessarily have to be local, but I mean, is there a case that sticks out in your mind?
Well, there's a couple of cases. One with the Maura Murray case.
Oh, yeah.
She wasn't found. I don't think she's been found yet, or what the story is. I haven't been following it lately, but that one's a really intriguing case. And even the one up here in Canada, the Emma Filipoff one, that's also very intriguing. See, with stuff like that, where you see where people went missing and haven't been found for so long, I find that really intriguing, because it could go either way, right? So one way it could go where the person was kidnapped and God only knows what could have happened to that individual. And on the other hand, it could have been a case where the person just wanted to sort of disappear and was successful at it.
Yeah, but in those kind of cases where somebody is just basically disappeared off the face of the planet, how agonizing that can be for families that are looking for that person is just, you got to feel for that. I mean, it's, of course. And it must drive people, not so much insane, but
insane. I would say that.
Yeah, to try to figure out, what's happened, because there's no closure. Like, my daughter or my son or whatever, are they still alive? If they're still alive, I want to know. Like, I just want to know they're okay, and that kind of thing. And for a parent, obviously, or a sibling or whatnot, that's a constant thing. When there is no closure.
That's right.
When there's nothing, there's just like little tidbits and leads that go nowhere, and there's these little pockets of hope that spur this look at, okay, maybe we've got it this time, and it doesn't pan out.
Yeah, exactly.
It's scary, and it's sad. It's all these emotions in one, and well, let's just say it's beyond unpredictable, and it's I certainly wouldn't want to be in a situation where some of these people have lost somebody, even if there is closure where they have been found and unfortunately murdered or whatnot. Either way, it's sad. But tonight we have the co-hosts, the hosts, if you will, of the popular True Crime podcast, True Crime Garage, Nick and the Captain. Thanks, guys, for coming on this evening and talking with us.
Hello. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
We were talking a little bit off air, and this, like I said, the one thing that sort of led me, obviously the true crime, sort of the crime aspect of the podcast, but you guys, leading off with a beer of choice and a craft beer, like independent micro beer brew, whatever. What's the story behind that?
I don't know. I mean, I wish there was a really good answer for that, but the idea that we had, the captain and I, when we first started, was that we wanted to do a show where it's two guys hanging out, chatting about something, and we didn't know what the something was going to be. Mm-hmm. And once we figured out that it was true crime, it didn't matter what we were going to be talking about, but we wanted to have a show where it was two guys hanging out as friends and having a good time. Mm-hmm. Well, you've been there. We've all been there. How do you have a good time? You meet your friend for a drink.
Yeah.
And, at the time, and still to this day, I'm very much into craft beer. And so it seemed fitting to sit down together and share a beer and talk about something that, that needs to be talked about, mm-hmm. unsolved crimes. And it just seemed fitting. I mean, it's two guys sitting in a garage sharing a beer and discussing these cases.
What are you drinking right now?
It's strange it's strange that you said Trillium earlier, because
there you go.
Right now I'm having a double dry hopped scaled India Pale Ale from Trillium.
And you can never miss with Trillium.
And I only have one of them, so after this I'll have to move on to something else.
And I must say, Captain, the music, which mm-hmm. I'm pretty much sure you are are you entirely behind? This is all your creation, the music portion of the podcast.
Yeah, so we do a different theme for each case and for each show. So the lead-ins and lead-outs, they're new every week.
Yeah, some really, really awesome stuff. And again, that it adds so much, not so much, not just atmosphere, but, surrounding the whole podcast, obviously. And it's some really, really cool stuff. I gotta commend you on that. That's and because I mean that's your background, right? You are a musician, right?
Yeah, I did that for a long time. That's how I made my money, so made my living.
Nice. Now, with the podcast, dealing with true crime. And I know a lot of the, there's obviously a lot of cases out there that, Charlie Manson, there's so many serial killers and whatnot that people are so familiar with. But what I like about True Crime Garage is the fact that you guys have been able to bring forward some cases that not a lot of people have any clue about. What kind of reaction do you guys get with a lot of these lesser known cases?
Well, actually, we get a lot of praise when we discuss lesser known cases.
Yeah.
And which we're very thankful for, because when we talk about a case that nobody's heard about, mm-hmm. that's why we're talking about it.
Yeah.
And that's why we get passionate about it, because look, we all know the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Mm-hmm. This is what I get upset about. And this is what the captain gets upset about. When someone is taken away, when somebody is murdered,
yep.
when they are taken away from their family,
mm-hmm.
that is the worst possible experience that anybody could endure in their entire life.
Absolutely.
And so when we talk about, the old saying, when it takes a village to raise a child, some of these cases, it takes a village to solve the damn case of somebody being killed.
Yep.
So when we cover these cold cases that nobody's ever heard of outside of that county, it's amazing to us that nobody's heard of it. Because if somebody was taken away from you, it would be the most pinnacle. It would be a pinnacle moment in your life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it should be for the community as well. And oftentimes it is. But outside of that town, that city, that county, a lot of these are not known. And it should be known. It's the worst thing for somebody to be killed, to be
burned. And I think there's two ideas too. I mean, one, with every case that's unsolved, that somebody out there knows something. So we're trying to shed some light on it. But even if we can't do much other than telling the person's story to help it try to get solved, at least we're doing that. This is an individual that had a life that somebody took that life away. And it's important that we remember these victims.
Like, what do you find tougher? Like, I mean, a case where, the victim is found brutally murdered or whatnot, or is still missing.
For me, it's when they're found brutally murdered, because if they're still missing, there's some hope.
Yeah.
There's some hope out there. But, you guys, I heard you guys talking, just the two of you earlier, about missing people. And there's an old movie called 8mm. I don't know if you've ever seen it.
Yep, I love that flick.
Yeah, that's a good movie where Nicolas Cage is talking to the mother of a disappeared girl, and she says to him, it's been all these years. If I could choose between her being dead and know what happened to my daughter, or her be alive and never know. And she cries when she says this, but she says, I would want to know. And that, and I know that's Hollywood, and I know that's a movie, but I'm sure that's something that these parents have to deal with and have to guilt themselves with some of these disappeared cases. But yeah, for me, I prefer that somebody is missing, because there is a chance that they left on their own accord, that they left for reasons, or that they are out there. I mean, we've seen this with J.C. Dugard. And there's other cases out there where people have been abducted as children and kept alive, and they return one day.
Yeah, and obviously they're the ones that drone on. Alex mentioned the Mara Murray and the Emma Filipovs out there. Guys, like Mara Murray, what do you think?
I think.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think if you look at the documentary that they did on Oxygen, I think they went back through a lot of these debate points that people on the internet have just debated for years. And a lot of these points should have had no debate in the beginning, but because it becomes an internet case, there starts becoming a lot of gray areas. So I think they did a pretty good job of stating definitively that she got into somebody's car. That's something that me and Nick felt pretty strongly about with the evidence that was presented when we covered the case. So we know that she got in the car. Then the question becomes who she got in the car with and why. I do believe that she's probably deceased. And as more and more evidence comes out and they're starting to link some locals and some people that maybe she went to a party with, I think the more information that comes out, I think police are going to rule this a homicide eventually.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then with Emma's case, your listeners, if they really want to follow that case in detail, we have a really good buddy up in Canada, Jordan, that does the Nighttime podcast.
Yeah, we had Jordan on the show.
Yeah, and he's going to be doing a series podcast just on Emma's case. And Emma's case is very strange to me because the evidence really doesn't point. There's no point of foul play in the evidence there. So to me, you can kind of hold out hope that she is somewhere in Canada.
And I mean, they really haven't figured out who this guy in that showed up in that convenience store. Have they?
Right. No, they figured out who he is, but I believe so. But it's also one of those things where there's a lot of people that get involved in cases for no reason. They have no reason to be involved. Just like with the Mara Murray case, there was a guy that was posting videos on the internet and YouTube that were suggesting that maybe he was responsible for Mara Murray's disappearance. Had no link to the case at all. It was just some guy that had too much time on his hands. And I think a lot of times with true crime, paranormal, or even conspiracy stuff, I think sometimes that leads to people that have a little too much time on their hand.
Yeah, we see that all the time.
Yeah. And again, a lot of the times, even with the case like Eliza Lamb, even with her, you guys covered that, did you not?
Yeah.
Yeah,
we did.
You guys covered that. Another strange case, and again, a missing person turns into a very strange death, unfortunately. When you guys look at these cases, and I know you guys probably get a lot of suggestions on cases to cover, from your listeners and whatnot. Would you guys teeter more towards, the serial killer, or, or paying more attention to victims? These cases where, we as we mentioned before, some of the lesser known cases, but the cases where we need to bring attention to the victims more so than the serial killers.
Well, I mean,
go ahead.
Go ahead. We're in sync. No, go ahead, Nick.
So when we bring up these cases, it has to be about the victims.
Yeah.
That is the story. Those are even though we say the word victim, but in a way they're a hero, because whoever killed them should not be walking amongst us in society. And they didn't give their life in vain. So the story has to be about the victims, because again, they are the hero, and hopefully their killer is caught, locked away forever. And most of the time, look, the people that are capable of committing these type of crimes, not always, but if they're capable of doing it once, they're capable of doing it again. And they don't deserve to be walking around in society and be in your community or my community.
Yeah.
And they need to be locked up, and potentially these victims have saved the lives of other people.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. You know, and I mean, there's so many different variations with a lot of these cases. Like, you know, you look at cases like, one of the recent ones that you guys just covered, the Dewan Sims case, and going to, one that's completely, on a different sort of spectrum. And I believe the what was it, the Kids on the Tracks?
Boys on the Track.
Boys on the Track, sorry. Like that case, and how much controversy is behind a case like that.
Yeah, that case has just been reopened, and I believe the Boys on the Tracks case is going to be reopened, and I believe that the FBI is going to look at it as well. And I believe that was announced last week.
Yeah, there's some movement on that case, which is extremely exciting, because there's some entities involved in that case.
Yeah.
There are people that were working under taxpayer dollars that probably killed those boys. And there's a bazillion other crimes being committed through the course of that. And what we're seeing now in that case is that there's going to have to be some disclosure over what was truly going on. Now, are we going to get the whole story? Don't fool yourself.
Yeah.
We're not the full story.
No.
We never will. We never will, unfortunately. But it's exciting to hear that. Who was it, Captain? Kevin Ives. His mother sued multiple agencies, and now they are required to disclose some information regarding things going on, I believe, is what we're going to find out. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. I don't know that we're going to get that case, those boys. I don't know if we're going to get those particular cases solved through the course of this. But I think what we're going to get is we're going to get to a long laundry list of people that were up to no good, that were working for taxpayer dollars, that are going to receive some form of punishment for what they were doing.
Right, and a lot of the guys that were involved in the case, they later went on to do bad things, and some of them are already serving time for that. So I think, if anything, they might shed some light on some new characters, but I think for the most part, they'll take a couple key players and throw them under the bus instead of having a big umbrella of characters.
And I mean, yeah, that umbrella of characters, controversy-wise, it goes all the way up to the governor of Arkansas at the time, right?
Yeah.
Which is scary in itself.
To be fair, we should say possibly.
Possibly, yes, possibly. I mean, they're obviously. I mean,
there's reasons to believe that that's the case.
Yeah.
But to be fair, we should say possibly.
Yes.
There's a lot of reasons to believe that maybe his brother had some knowledge of things that were going on as well. So it's really a lot of shameful stuff. I mean, it just truly just. I mean, as an American speaking to a Canadian, we're talking about somebody that went on to hold the highest office in our government.
Exactly.
And it's something that as an American, if it's true, I mean, I'm embarrassed, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think it comes out with, as far as like a lot of the conspiracy theorists out there, and that's a subject that I've been pretty interested in, to tie in true crime with some kind of conspiracy theory. I think I think the word conspiracy is such a dirty word, and so it's like you toss that word out to minimize somebody, and I think this was a case or example of if the more you know the truth or the more evidence you get, the more it might actually scare you that some of these conspiracies are possible.
Yeah. And that's the scary part. Yeah. I mean, the truth may be there in front of our eyes, but it's titled conspiracy, or they want you to believe that, or however it's spun, which is scary, but unfortunately it happens all the time. Well, not all the time, but when we're dealing with a case like this, it's right there. Unfortunately, has there been a case that has hit you guys close to home?
Captain, you want to go first on this, or do you want me to go?
I mean, there's been several. I'll let you start. I'm interested to see what you say.
Okay, so when you say close to home, I mean, that's tough that's a tough answer to give, and here's why. I mean, and this is something that the captain and I discuss a couple times a month.
Okay.
We don't know why. Okay, so every week we cover a new case. We're talking about every week we are talking about somebody that we've never met, about a family that we would never know, maybe even in a town that we've never been to. And the worst possible thing has happened to them. And you know what? What is totally weird is some weeks I'm numb to it. I'm numb to it. It just seems like a story that happened off in a faraway place in a faraway time, and it doesn't matter. And then there's other weeks that it punches me right in the throat and the heart. And I don't know why it bothers me some weeks, and I don't know why it doesn't bother me other weeks. You would think that it would be more consistent than that. But
I think it's all about how much you're drinking, really.
No, but
if you drink 8 beers, then you become a little numb,
No, but okay, so I'll bring this up. And this is something that was apparent on our show. But if you could be behind the scenes, if you could have been sitting in the garage that day, it would have been more obvious. Was when we talked about the Cheshire murders. We covered the Cheshire murders about a month or two ago. And this was a family that was held hostage. They were ambushed in the middle of the night, home invasion case, and the result was the father was tied up in the basement, knocked unconscious, and the girls, the daughters, and his wife were killed. And the captain and I got into some heated arguments about the case. And it was, and we let a lot of that be on the show, but we also took a lot of it off of the show. And it was one of these things where I was not mad at the captain. He wasn't mad at me. We were so angry about what had happened to these people. And I
was mad at him.
And maybe he was mad at me. I don't know. But that's what I was upset about. And we've had that on occasion where he and I get a little heated with one another, but we're not mad at each other. We're mad at what happened. We're mad at what we're talking about.
But that's what's brilliant about the show, though, how you guys can find that common ground, though. And you don't always agree, but the thing is, you're bringing these points and you're bantering it out, and people are getting an array of opinion where a lot of other shows that deal with this type of arena, like the true crime sort of aspect, they'll sit there and agree on something, and when listeners tune into something like this, all those listeners aren't going to agree with one point. Right. Where you guys are bringing a variation, and that's I think what I really like about the show is the fact that you guys don't always agree on the outcome. Or
Steve and I are like that all the time.
Oh, yeah.
But and I think the other thing though too is like it depends on how you create the show. So if you're two minds and you're looking at a case together, then you might come up with, there's a lot of times that by the end of looking at the case, by the end of recording the case, that me and Nick are closer than when we started the case. So, but we don't create we don't create the idea of the show. We don't research the cases together. So, and we're just different people. And I think the other thing too is it's not even so much always debating. But one of the things that I like to pat ourselves on the back for is there's certain things about the case that Nick might find fascinating or interesting that I might not at all. And then there's little details that I find fascinating. So I think we do a good job of just trying to be true to ourselves and not always just try to agree, so we're united on one front. He's his own person, I'm my own person, and that's the show. Where I think other shows try to have a united viewpoint on things.
And I mean that shows too, because I know you guys have had a couple episodes where you guys bring forward your top 10 true crime documentaries, or your top 10 cases or whatever that you guys have. Or books, because I mean you guys have your recommended reading that you guys put forward on all the shows. I mean that shows when you guys put those things out there as well.
Yeah, I also think the thing that's interesting, when we started the show, like Nick was saying before, is really just we need to come up with a topic. So we'd always kind of just hang out in his garage, and that would lead to drinking some beer. And normally, because we haven't hung out for a while, he wasn't busting out the Miller Lite every time. He might bust out something a little nice. So that kind of came into the show later. But we'd always talk about music, sometimes some conspiracy stuff, because that's what I'm into. Mm-hmm. But we kind of always have gravitated back towards true crime, whether he's bringing up the topic or I am. But it's just there are a handful of cases that we're both extremely fascinated with, but there's so many cases I'm interested in that they just don't spark his fancy. And there's some cases that he comes in so excited to talk about, and by the end of it, I'm pretty excited. But doing the research, it didn't grab me as much as it grabbed him. So I think we got lucky on that.
Well, just there's a question I want to ask.
Okay, so, yeah, go ahead.
Aside from listener recommendations as far as cases, when you first started out, how did you decide on which cases to basically look at and then bring forth?
Well, I mean, really, in the very beginning, it was very easy because unfortunately, there's a million cases out there to discuss, whether they're solved or unsolved or cold cases, missing persons, whatever. And so in the beginning, it was very easy. It was just to pick cases that excite either of us or both of us together. But nowadays, it's a little different because I feel like, nowadays we are, having done this for so long, having over 160 episodes under our belts, we are basically victim advocates. And, like we said earlier, with some of these cold cases from smaller towns, from cases that are not heard of, cases that aren't on Dateline, cases that haven't had a bazillion books written about them. These are still people that have a story. that their lives were ended too soon, and that need to be told, and they need to have a digital footprint, and so typically nowadays what we try to do, we get a lot of listener suggestions. Almost, I mean, I get
much.
I mean, like it's like 50 or 100 a week. I mean, it's a crazy amount of listener suggestions for cases to cover. So what we try to do now is that we will basically talk about a case for 5-10 minutes, the two of us together, a couple weeks in advance, if not a month in advance. What we look for are cases that excite us. We want cases that, and not that all of them wouldn't excite us.
Yeah.
It's just if we can scratch the surface on something, and the captain can get angry about something, or I can get angry about something, or we can find some reason.
We're two pissed off guys.
That we want that we want to be an advocate for that particular victim, then that's a good case to cover.
Yeah, and I mean, I do agree with what Nick is saying about being advocates for the victim. That's not the 100% goal, because we talk about solved cases as well, and I think some of that is important, because the more you understand about how a case was solved, the more you can understand how a cold case possibly could get solved.
Right.
So I think that's important as well. And then I think on the psychological point, which I've gotten away from in the last, it was something that when we were in his garage in the beginning and not recording, just hanging out, the psychological part, whether it's of the victim or the victim's family or of the killer themselves, has always been something I've been interested in, and thinking that's important as well. And that's something I kind of forgot about until the recent Mindhunter thing on a show on Netflix. And if anybody has not seen that, it's a really well put together show. But
yeah, you got to check that out. It's a good show, yeah.
But to me, that show reconfirmed why we should think about this on a psychological standpoint, and what we should be looking for. Because, like you said, I mean, maybe this country needs a cleansing, or maybe this world needs a cleansing. But I think a lot of it starts with, the idea of just because we can do something doesn't mean we should. And I think this is the psychological aspect of what people are going through in their lives, their day-to-day lives. This is going to change, and this is also going to change the way crimes are taking place. I mean, we were talking with who were we talking about? The true crime expert for True Murder.
Oh, Dan Zupansky.
Oh, Dan Zupansky. Yeah.
So Dan Zupansky brought up a very good point when we're talking about the Luca Magnotta case, and what we've been seeing a lot more recently, especially in the United States, is these mass murderers, where you're seeing less focus on the serial killer and more focus on a mass murder, or something like the Luca Magnotta case, where it's such a elaborate, crazy, you have to go over the top. It's one, we talked, people will put Luca Magnotta in the same category as Jeffrey Dahmer or a Charles Manson or whatever. One kill.
Yeah, exactly.
But it's this, he had to do it in such an elaborate way, in such a spectacle. And you're going to see that, but that comes back to, where is our psychology? Where's the social psychology, and why are these people doing this? And why is somebody now, instead of maybe killing one person or two people, why are they going and shooting up a concert? Why is this happening?
Yeah.
Well, and Dan Zupansky has been a big driver.
Yeah.
On one thought, that that some of today's current killers that only kill one victim or maybe two, that they're seeking to be famous. And he's exactly right. I mean, he covered the Sidney Tierhuis case and the, and he talked about the Luca Magnotta case. And that's exactly what you see in those cases where you have a killer who only kills one person. Now, there is some thought that Sidney Tierhuis may have killed before the crime that he got caught for. But, seeking fame through murder, which is an interesting thing that Dan Zupansky has brought up. Now, in America, we are faced with these shootings, which is, I can't even wrap my head around it. I really can't. Like, whether it be a school, a movie theater, Las Vegas concert. I don't fully understand what's going on with that, or the psychological thing that's going on with that. But what I should say here is that as far as crime goes, and as far as murder goes, we hear, and I know you guys hear this from your parents and maybe from your grandparents as well. Back in my day, we didn't do this. Back in my day, well, technically, I don't know about Canada, but in the United States, technically, as bad as some things seem to be, the murder rates and the crime rates in America are lower than they've been in the past 20, 30 years. So we're trending downwards. Even though it doesn't seem like that, it doesn't feel like that to me.
Because it's not concentrated on it. I mean, they don't want the mass public to concentrate on that, even though it's a stat. It's an obvious stat, but I mean, it's the I don't want to say it. The quality of some of these events that take place that really shock some of these people.
It's also the fact that there's a lot more media attention
that
to these
too,
crimes,
yeah, that
even
too.
with like social media and what have you, whereas before you didn't have that.
Right, and you're exactly right, and that's the thing, and that's where the feeling, that's where the heart comes involved, where you see it, you hear it, you see it on your tablet, you see it on your computer, you hear it on the radio, you read it in the newspaper, you see it on the TV, because you're getting information from everywhere.
Yeah, you're getting information a lot faster, and you're not just going and getting your local newspaper to get your information anymore. It's not the 50s.
Right. In the 50s, 60s, 70s, it was the same rates, if not higher, but you're only getting your local report.
Yeah.
Where if there was something crazy that happened several states over, you didn't get that report for 3 days. You have no emotional connection to something that happened 3 days ago in several states over.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the like he said, the news media outlets, but I think it's also how things are shared through social media, and then you can see a bunch of the comments on that as well. And so not only are you receiving news, but you're almost interacting with it. But Nick was talking about these killers that seem to want to be famous, and then I'd argue when you look at the psychology of it, it's not. There's a couple steps before they murdered somebody that we need to start looking at, and then thinking about this as a society, because it's not just that Luca Magnotta killed somebody and put it on YouTube to get famous. You 3 steps before that, you have a guy that's still trying to get famous. And I think there's a lot more, especially now, there's a lot more people trying to get famous for no reason other than the fact to be famous. So it's not like when when I was a kid, you'd sit and play guitar for hours because if you got good enough, you could write maybe some good songs and then people would like you. So it had nothing to do with being famous. You just wanted to get good at guitar. Therefore, you can write some songs. And there was always, a percentage of those people that were learning how to play guitar or drums or whatever that they didn't really care to get good at the instrument. They just wanted to be famous. But I think you're seeing a lot bigger of percentage of the country now, with celebrities such as like Kim Kardashian and stuff like that. When you go, well, what do they do? What is Kim Kardashian's talent?
Exactly.
And I think there's a lot of people now, I get it all the time. I mean, because people say, well, are you playing gigs anymore? No. Oh, so you're doing the podcast more full time. Yeah. Well, man, I should start a podcast. And the conversation normally ends pretty quickly because I go, well, what would you talk about? And normally it's just, well, I don't know, but I should start one. Well, start with what can you talk about, for hours.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about? Like, just don't pick something because you think it'll be successful. I mean, you really have to have a passion about
exactly.
it. But I think that's with everything, and I think that's part of the psychology of our society that we're not looking at.
Okay, we're going to take a short break here, and in the immortal words of the captain, Alex, don't be a douche canoe.
All right, I try not to. And when we come back, I have something that Redmond brought
Yes,
up in chat.
yes, we're gonna lay that out for the guys and more. So don't go anywhere. You're listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. We'll be right back.
So let me ask you, what makes for good radio?
My 5 favorite songs all day long.
Play it again.
No.
As many commercials as physically possible.
What? No, why would that be good?
Great music, great talk shows, no commercials!
Precisely. New Visions Radio gives you no commercials, no nonsense, just the best new music and the best talk all day long, 24/7, 365. NewVisionsRadio.com.
Before going to Port Robinson Road, I would have been one of those guys that you told me that you were going on a ghost hunt. I wouldn't necessarily laugh at you, but I would think to myself, yeah, that's a waste of time. There's really no point in going.
Port Robinson Road is not a horror film, and it shouldn't be confused with the mainstream Hollywood horror films of today. It's a mystery, thriller, drama, and I don't think it's anything that's ever been done before, at least not in this way. And I think it's vital to the paranormal world that a film like this takes itself seriously. I don't think there are too many films of this nature that take themselves too seriously, and this one does. At least I'm taking it very seriously, and that is why I think it's about time that something like this was brought to the forefront.
Visit PortRobinsonRoad.com for more information on the feature paranormal film in development.
But going to Port Robinson Road really just took my eyes and peeled them right open and said, you know what? There's the possibility for this to be out there.
You are listening to Nocturnal Frequency Radio, hosted by Steve Jenny and his satanic assistant, Alex Fontane, both of whom can't go into churches without vomiting.
And welcome back to Nocturnal Frequency Radio here live exclusively on the New Visions Radio Network. And this evening, in case you're just tuning in, we are talking true crime with the guys from the very popular true crime podcast, True Crime Garage, Nick and the Captain. And if you'd like to check out more about the show, the archives, the cases they've covered, and everything else, go to their website at www.truecrimegarage.com. We spoke earlier about, you guys cracking a cold one for each show, and, you guys have the beer fund. I think that's brilliant. But how have people, reacted to the fact that, okay, well, what are these guys doing drinking beer and talking about true crime? Like, some of these cases are sensitive. Have you guys ever had any complaints or anything like that about that sort of portion of the show?
I think at first we had a lot more people that, would go, oh, these guys are drunk. And in fairness, the first handful of episodes, we did drink a lot more. I mean, we'd drink before we started recording. We started drinking, an hour or so before while we're setting up. We started drinking. So by the end of an hour and a half, 2 hours, sometimes we had maybe too many beers. But I think the more cases that we covered, and people know that our hearts, our motivation is that we mean well, we have good intentions, and we never drink. Well, I wouldn't say never, but for the most part, we don't drink before we start, and we also drink less now than we used to.
Well, in probably within the last year, when we say we're having a beer and talking true crime, it's technically that. We are having one beer and doing our episode. Now, on occasion, we might have more than that, but for the most part, we're sipping a beer and we're talking about our case. And this is a case every week. This is a case that we've spent a lot of time.
Yeah.
We've spent a lot of time in advance going through the details and looking for every bit and piece of the story that we could report to everybody.
And so, that's the thing.
We're not going to sit there and get slosh drunk and a bunch of teenagers and pretend like we're not talking about something serious. This is something that we've spent days on before we show up to the garage to discuss this case.
And I mean, the research, it shows. I mean, the information that you guys bring out on each episode, it's right there in black and white. I mean, you guys thoroughly, it shows, do the research.
Well, yeah, Nick does. I mean, I do research as well, but we process things differently. If there's a movie about a case, I can watch the movie and probably memorize 98% of it if it's, a movie or a documentary. And where Nick will, almost every week, there's even a case that I'll dive into where I'm going, I might know some stuff he doesn't. Almost every week he will say something that surprises me, and I'm hearing it for the first time, and I go, man, I've been to 20 different websites. I've went to all these web sleuth sites. I've been on all these forums. I've called private investigators and talked about this case with them, and he still will bring up something that I never heard, and I get to control the recording. So sometimes I stop the recording and go, is that true? Like, where did I didn't find that anywhere,
Yeah, still to this day, I'll bring up something and he'll go, is that true? And I'm like, really? We've done 160 episodes. You got to question me if it's true or not.
I've been friends with him a long time, though. So in all fairness, it's like you can't believe everything he says.
I told the captain a long time ago that, that I wouldn't feel good. I wouldn't feel that we were doing our job reporting these cases if we couldn't present something to the listeners that wasn't new information for them, whether it's something that took place 10 years ago or 2 weeks ago. We want to present every bit of the case that we can.
Yeah.
And one thing that we do on our show is that we will say, this is the case. We will lay out the case for you. If we are laying out the case for you, then consider it to be fact. On occasion, we will say, you know what? There has been one newspaper that said this. There's been one news outlet that said this. These are conflicting statements. We cannot verify which one is true. because we want the listeners to be able to listen to the case in a sense that they can be walked through what's going on and they can come up with their own opinion, what took place, what actually happened.
Well, and there's a responsibility. And when we first started, I mean, it literally was Nick saying, let's do a podcast. And I said, okay, that'd be great. What do we talk about? And he said true crime. And he's always been the true crime expert during the conversation. It's not, there's rarely ever that I bring up a case that he hasn't heard of. Mm-hmm. So it was more like when he said true crime, I was like, oh, great. We probably can get through 4 episodes and we'll see what happens. But so, he's really approaching it more from that aspect of being a true crime enthusiast for so long. And now I believe, out of the two of us, I would argue that he's the expert of the group. And I just bring more of the color commentary to a lot of things. But there's a lot of cases that I know the information. He's just the one sharing it. So, but it's important because it's, like you said, I mean, if you hear about the show, True Crime Garage, 2 guys sitting in a garage drinking some beer. Well, I'd argue that there's not too many true crime shows, period, in the world that have presented as much information about these cases as we have.
I agree. Like, I mean, I listened to quite a few of them. I've been in, I guess, I don't want to say obsessed, but I mean,
yeah, obsessed is the right word.
I mean, I've been interested in true crime for God knows how long, and obviously when the podcast format became popular and more accessible and everything else, obviously listening to a lot of these podcasts, and there's only so many of them now that I will, like, on a weekly basis, like, tune into. Like, I'll upload, like, obviously, you guys. I mean, now you guys pretty much 2 episodes per week. What the Tuesday and Wednesday nights. I mean, with the few exceptions that you might have an extensive look at a particular case, but for the most part, you guys are 2 parts, right?
Yeah, and occasionally we also just do a 1-parter. It's really more based on what the case has to offer or what the case has to be presented, and then also, like we said, our main goal is to present the case and present the evidence. But the more that we've done this, the more people want to know what our thoughts are. So that's something that some weeks we're better about than other weeks. But at the end of the day, that's what a lot of the listeners want. Since we've looked at so many cases now, we have a different idea. It's just like when we're researching a case and we present that to a private investigator or present it to a local detective for them to go over what we found. Mm-hmm. People just have different viewpoints on it, and that can be fascinating.
Well, and to expound on that a bit, what the captain is saying about people wanting to hear our opinion on what we think actually happened or who is guilty or why somebody was killed. Mm-hmm. Some weeks we have a big opinion on that. Some weeks we have a lot of ideas on that. And there's other weeks where we're just as confused as everybody else, where we're like, yeah, we get why this is a cold case because there's all these contributing factors into why this case has not been solved.
So I have a 2-part question. First, let's get the one from Redmond out of the way.
Yeah.
He brought up a case out in Manchester about the canal pusher. I don't know if either of you know about this. And he goes on to say something like, some say the drownings are accidental, but others say that there's a pusher preying on vulnerable or inebriated young people. Have you guys ever heard about the canal pusher?
Where is this?
In the UK.
Yeah, UK.
Yeah, I think there's 29 bodies have been pulled from the canal, something like that. This is very similar to what we have in the States, and we covered a case, Brian Schaefer, who was a guy that went missing from a bar. We had another kid go missing from a bar just in the last couple of years, and he was found in the river. And you see this a lot. Like, we just played. Ohio State just played Wisconsin for the Big Ten title. This has happened in Columbus, but it's also happened a lot at big colleges around the country. So, but this is a little different. Your guys' Canal Pusher is a little different because it's all one area.
And I mean, you could lump the mysterious missing men of Boston or Massachusetts into that as well, right?
And basically in Pittsburgh as well.
Yeah.
There's a bunch of different locations, but I think any time that there's a number of individuals found, like we have the smiley face killer theory here, and that's so a lot of these deaths are ruled accidental, and I think a lot of that has to do with how much evidence is washed away by the water. But it's what would be my theory on it? I would say that a lot more of these are homicides than accidents, even though they're not reported as such.
Yeah. Sorry. The second question I had for you guys is: any of the cold cases that you guys covered, has anything resulted, or have any of your shows resulted in cases being reopened?
I don't know that it's been any direct connection to our show, but there has been movement on some cold cases that we have discussed on our show. And I'll tell you what. Here's the thing that's freaking weird, and you know what? This is why I love the world. And I don't want to turn into a weird hippie right now. But this is why
takes his clothes off.
I love the world.
That's it. You're cut off from that trillium, man.
After 8 beers, he takes his clothes off.
But here's the thing. I think that when you put good vibes out there, sometimes good things come back.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I won't say that anything that we've done on our show has done anything other than brought cases to new ears.
Absolutely.
However, it's weird, and the captain he might back me up on this, but he should back me up on this. But I've told him this, and he's told me this too. It's weird that there are times where we've covered cases, and then weeks later there's some movement on it, and it's not because of our show. It's because the world and the life is happening everywhere. But go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, like, not to get too hippity-dippity on this whole stuff, but, thoughts can be measured. And so there could be something, that we just don't know through science, where by covering this case in a 2-week time period, you have over 300,000 or 400,000 people listen to this and consciously think about this victim or the crimes that took place. And then people then talk about it with their friends, and then that spreads the word, and then the post on social media. So maybe there is something to it where, we were able to shed some light, but also shed some consciousness on it, and maybe there's something to do with that. I'd like to believe so.
See, now you're talking paranormal stuff, Captain.
No, but you're right, and that's what we've seen through emails and through talking to other people and seeing what's going on in the news with some of these cases that we've covered. It's weird. It's weird that sometimes we'll cover a case and then 2-3 weeks later, there's some movement.
Yeah, or there's an arrest. And just recently, we've had a couple cases like that with the Delphi murders. There was arrest not long after. Somebody that wasn't on our radar, and somebody that wasn't on a lot of people's radar. If you talk to web sleuths and private investigators that were looking into the case, this guy wasn't on a lot of people's radars, but it was covered by us. That case was covered by a lot of other national news, and maybe by that being covered, that's why there was some movement on it.
But covered by very few podcasts.
Right. Well, they all suck. But
have you guys sit down and watch the 11 at all?
The what?
The 11.
No.
You haven't seen that?
No, what is that?
That is the documentary. What is it? Netflix? I don't know. On the Galveston girls, the 11 girls that were murdered.
Yeah.
In Galveston, Texas?
Galveston, Texas, in the 70s there.
Well, we did cover the Texas killing field.
Yes, I know you guys. You guys tackled it.
We did a trilogy on that.
Yeah.
We did 3 episodes, pretty lengthy episodes on the Texas killing fields, and we presented several suspects. The problem that you had there is, here's a weird thing. And I've not seen that documentary. Now that you said that, I have to. Now you're making me stay up very late.
It's interesting. It's interesting.
But the thing is that you had there were a lot of girls being killed in that area at that time.
Yep.
That weren't even part of the Texas killing fields. That weren't even part of our episodes or anybody's books or documentaries.
Mm-hmm.
It's a strange situation where you probably have multiple serial killers and multiple individual killings going on in one area at one time.
Yeah.
And I truly feel that that's what happened there in the 70s.
You know it, and I know. I believe there was some sort of. They were trying to link it. I believe. What was it? Joshua Zeman, who we had on the show.
Yeah, he's a nice guy.
Amazing guy. I was really happy to have him on to talk about the killing season, obviously. And I believe it was one thing that I will definitely give you guys props, because I actually was listening to you guys, and it gave me an idea, and contacting Joshua and bringing him on the show to talk about not only that, but Cropsey and Killer Legends. But again, something comes up that Captain, you mentioned, the smiley face killers, and the fact that the possibility of a killer or a few killers that are roaming the major highways of the U.S. and how they
or major colleges as well.
Yeah, that are linked. Again, you've obviously got the brutal murders of several women, in the Gilgo Beach area and Long Island, that whole scenario, and then down in Florida, and then again over to Texas, and
a lot of these also have to do with drugs.
Yes.
Sex workers.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes the cases even more complicated.
Exactly.
And then I think also that these cases, as far as like the killing fields or Long Island, or even what's being covered right now in the Florida cases, And it happened here, like in Chillicothe, which is about an hour south of us, or an hour south of me. But I think a lot of times when these production crews get involved, they also try to take a story that maybe isn't there and present one.
Presenting one, yeah.
Because that was the big thing, and the Chillicothe case has been covered multiple times. There's not a lot of links between the actual murders. Maybe one or two of them were linked, but they want to present something. They want to present it as it is a serial killer, and that's not always the case. But anybody that's making a film, they don't really need to look at the facts. They're just trying to tell a story. And I think some of the people that are watching these documentaries just need to keep that in mind, that they don't really care if something's true or false. Just tell it to the camera because it's entertaining, if that makes any sense.
Oh, complete. Let
me interject.
Yeah, go for it.
And the captain's hinting on something here that is exactly right. There is no suspect zero.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's an old term that the FBI knows about. There is no suspect zero. Okay, so let's take an individual like Ed Edwards. Okay, Ed Edwards was a guy that killed some people in Wisconsin. He killed some people in another state. He probably killed anywhere between 6 to 10 people, let's say.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, there have been many people that have suggested that anybody that was killed within any state that this guy had been in, well, then he was likely the killer. That he had killed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. No, it doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. There's not a situation where you have that. It doesn't. I mean, this killing takes some time, which is strange to say. And then on top of that, the more that most of these people kill, the lazier and sloppier they get about it. And the more likely that they get caught.
Can I stump you, Nick?
No, you can't.
Okay. I'm going to give it a shot.
Go ahead.
I bet a beer you do.
Russell Maurice Johnson.
Go ahead. You're going to have to give me some more information on that.
Let's see here. Without giving too much away. Reported 7 victims.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right, and
he was the bedroom strangler.
There you go.
Somebody's Googling him.
Have you guys looked into that case at all? I know not on the show, but have you guys looked into that case?
I don't know at all.
No. No, it's weird because and kind of back on how we pick the cases. I mean, we used to try to go, we did a missing person case last week, so we probably shouldn't do that again this week. We've kind of thrown some of that whole stuff out the window because what we've realized is you're not doing any justice to these victims or to the listeners of the show if you're not into the case.
True.
So
true.
And so a lot of what happens is, Nick has a huge list. I have a huge list. So, you bring up this guy, Russell Maurice Johnson, never heard of him. Okay, the bedroom strangler, he'll go on a list and it's pretty, it's pretty interesting. Never heard of the guy. So,
Well, let's talk about him for a little bit. I'm intrigued now.
Now he's intrigued.
Yeah, so this is kind of what happens. He'll bring somebody up, or I just will have a list of people, and I start Googling, and it's, and it's just like this. I mean, now Nick will say, "Hey, let's put him on the list."
Why is he the bedroom strangler?
He seems like he's a rapist.
He began as a rapist, I believe, and a lot of he would sneak into the bedrooms of a lot of his victims, and
this is basically your guys' version of the Night Stalker.
Pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
Or the East Area rapist.
Yeah,
Here.
Yeah, pretty much. And again, this guy, he pretty much they get the guy, and he.
First of all,
okay.
Why is it 7 known victims? And 2, why do you bring him up when I bring up suspect 0?
Yeah, or did that have nothing to do with anything?
It probably didn't have anything to do with anything. I'm going, okay, let's try to stump Nick, because I was going back earlier to what the captain was saying about, well, he's let's try to stump him, sort of thing. But
well, no, and when I say he's the expert of the show, like I said, most of the time, if we're in a conversation with, I mean, it could be a detective or a private investigator, it's surprising how much he'll know more than the person. But when I'm saying he's a true crime expert, he's very much an expert of taking a case and researching it, every nook and cranny, where.
Okay.
Right.
Well,
and the thing is, I mean, I've been in this situation before where people will just bring up a random killer or victim. I can't know every one of them. There's a bazillion. Unfortunately.
Yeah, he watches sports.
Unfortunately, there's a bazillion of them out there.
Okay, well,
I wish there wasn't that many.
Okay, here's a short rundown. Okay,
here we go.
So Russell Maurice Johnson, dubbed the bedroom strangler, is a rapist and serial killer who sexually assaulted and murdered several women in the late 70s in London, Ontario, Guelph, Ontario, Canada. So within a couple hours of each other, they're about a couple hours in distance, driving-wise. He was found...
Did these take place in the early morning hours? Okay, because this is a typical situation with these guys. I'm guessing this took place before noon, and I'll tell you why. Okay. I don't know anything about this case, but this would be my guess. A lot of these guys operate the same way, and this is something the captain was talking about psychologically earlier.
Okay,
so we're talking about... You talk about statistics. Mm-hmm. When you look at these type of cases, when you talk about serial crimes committed over and over again, they typically do things similar ways. So I'm guessing these took place before noon. So what you would do in this type of case, you're talking about a bedroom strangler, somebody that raped and killed women in the Ontario area. I'm guessing what happened is that this guy would sit and wait for the man of the house to leave the home, and then he would break into the home, and either through a ruse to work himself into the home or break into the home, he would rape and attack the wife.
There was one incident where he apparently scaled an apartment wall as high as 15 stories to get to his victim.
15 stories?
15 stories.
Yeah, so I mean...
Wait, 5 stories?
5.
Well, then you're talking... Have you seen the movie Split?
I have not seen the whole thing, no. I have not seen Split. I can't say I've seen the whole movie. No.
Well, we stumped you. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm just looking at some of this stuff, but one of the things that is kind of odd. Maybe he stalked his victims, maybe he didn't. I'm assuming that he would. I mean, I think a lot of these cases, you notice that these guys, they take steps. So a lot of these guys will be peeping toms at some point.
Yeah.
But what's weird with his known victims is you have ages normally like early 20s, 20, 23, 22, 22.
Mm-hmm.
But then you have a couple that are 42, and 49.
Yeah.
So you see that from time to time, but normally they kind of have a victim that a profile of their victim that they like.
No, but you're talking about, okay, so here's the deal. With this type of killer, the number one thing is he's a rapist before he's a killer.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, he confesses to 7 murders and 17 attacks. So he would often watch his victims sleep for hours before attacking him.
Yeah, he probably raped. Unfortunately, he probably raped over a dozen women before he started killing.
Yeah.
Look, the number one motivation there is the rape, and then what he escalated to was killing them for his own gratification.
And a lot of times, do you think, and I hate to lessen this, and I don't, but do you think in a lot of cases with a lot of these guys, these murderers, if you will, serial killers, if not, whatever, the first one is accidental and then it escalates?
No, I wouldn't say accidental because I think that, like you said, it kind of cheapens it. But I think with a lot of these individuals, there's stuff going on in their head psychologically that I think that they can't really control or know how to control. Even you see this, and maybe Nick would agree with me or not. But you see, it seems like some of these guys knew that these urges were coming on, and they were having a hard time dealing with the urges themselves. So, I wouldn't say accidental. I think these things were they escalate. If that makes, I think escalate would be the better term than accidental.
Well, it's more like a thrill thing, isn't it?
Well, you see a lot of time. You see a lot of times though. I some of these again with the escalation sort of aspect, from hurting animals or killing animals to murder.
Right.
And so on and so on.
Well, and the captain's exactly right. The thing is that a lot of these guys, and what we're talking about here, to be very clear, is serial rapists or serial murderers of women. That most of these guys, and we're talking about 90% of them, at a young teenage years, they're having fantasies, sexual fantasies that involve a high level of violence.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it turns into.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, like I was saying about the escalation, was I think some of it becomes, and I think what you're trying to get at on the accidental side is, did this person plan to murder the first person they murdered? Probably not. It was, the motivation was sexual. So the motivation was, and I wouldn't put a percentage on this, but the motivation was sexual. And then it became, now that this is over, how do I cover my tracks?
Yeah.
And
I, like I said, I think that becomes escalation. So.
Well, hang on. Steve Alex, who said the question if
Thrill?
the murder was accidental?
That was Steve.
Yeah.
Okay, so Steve said if the first murder was accidental. Why do you say that, Steve? Do you say that?
No, I'm just posing it as a question.
You're posing it as a question.
With a lot of these guys, with a lot of these murderers, if you will, do you think that perhaps
are you putting a heaven and hell there?
No. What I'm trying to sort of figure out is, a lot of times are these guys in a situation where, okay, they might be a serial rapist, but there might be that one time where they go a little too far and they accidentally kill, and all of a sudden this sort of whole new aspect or door opens up for them.
Yeah, but I think the door was the door was already there.
It was just a matter of achieving it.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Captain's right. The thing is, if a serial rapist accidentally killed someone, in my opinion, I don't think it would ever happen again.
Okay.
For in most cases, I can't guarantee that, but in most cases, there's been a lot of serial rapists that will occupy an area and break into homes and rape women time and time again, and they will never kill anybody. Right. So I'm just going off of numbers here. Yeah. I mean, you every situation is a different situation, obviously.
Yeah, and just like
numbers.
Right, and just like we said, I mean, it doesn't always have to escalate towards that.
Oh man, we're coming down to the last few minutes here.
We got dark real quick.
I know.
that
always title for a show.
It always happens. It always
happens on this show.
It does.
I was hoping we would get into some paranormal stuff.
We can, but one question is, the captain. I wanted to ask him, conspiracy. What's your interest in the conspiracy realm?
I mean, I think I'm just interested in what actually happened, and I think most of the time we're never really told that, and so I get really upset when I'm talking with people and I bring up, with whatever conspiracy. If you bring up something that is factual, and they say, "No, well, that's just conspiracy." There's, I try not to present anything of a quote unquote conspiracy that is not factual.
Yeah.
So, and I think those little points of evidence prove that maybe there's some more digging that needs to be done on whatever the conspiracy is. And I think it's also that we should just realize that we aren't being told the full truth. And maybe for our own safety.
Oh, I agree. I absolutely agree. There's so many aspects of, I don't want to say governmental, but in many cases, yes. But just on a whole, there are so many aspects, as you pointed out, that we're not being told the full gist of things, and there's so many out there that where do you begin?
Yeah, and I think the thing too is, especially with like the Alex Joneses and stuff like that, I don't think a lot of people are covering conspiracies in a proper way. I think they're just looking for viewers. And they are talking to the guys that have a little bit too much time on their hands.
Well, I think a lot of it, though, when you mentioned Alex Jones, I think a lot of it has to do with perhaps maybe a political view too, right?
I think political view, but I also think it's where's you can always follow the money all the time.
Oh, man.
You look at Alex Jones, and does he believe everything he's saying? Maybe. But, he's getting paid to say that, and he's getting paid to try to keep people interested, and he has to develop content, but I just think he's not doing it in the most intelligent way or the most responsible way. But I don't think he necessarily cares. But I think, and look, and the funny thing about Alex Jones is here's somebody that is, quote unquote, just trying to give you the truth, quote unquote, just trying to tell you what the powers that be, and why are these people of power? Because of money. And I think sometimes Alex Jones needs to take a step back and realize that, a lot of the stuff he's spreading that is garbage, one, hurts his reputation, one, hurts all the individuals that are trying to get to the truth on something. But I don't think he cares because, again, I think it comes down to where his money is coming from.
Yeah, I think in the beginning he probably had he had an authentic motive or whatever, but now it's marred. It's marred, and as you pointed out, money and the possibility of making money.
Yeah, and I think we've seen that with, but that's everything. It's also just within politics. I think there's a lot of people, if you look at the early work by Hillary Clinton, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, you could see that her early work was doing good and making change. And I think she had the right motivation. And I think it just changes the longer that you get involved in something,
Yeah, it's politics. There's so many conspiracies that make your head spin. It's just of course know.
And like I said, my favorite thing about the conspiracies is to try to find one or two things out of the bullshit and out of the minutia, but one or two things that is actual factual about whatever the conspiracy is. I don't want you to know that is factual, that definitively that there's something not right with the story. That doesn't mean that you're going to get the answers. That doesn't mean that you can't hypothesize the own answer yourself. But that's what I find the most interesting with cases is that one or two little nuggets where you can't dispute this. This is factual, and now you have to walk away from the conversation going, well, I guess I don't know anything at all about anything.
True. It's a big arena. There's so much there, and oh god, there's so much to cover. That's a whole different ball game, that's for sure. Guys, it's been a complete honor to have you guys on. Like I said, I absolutely love the podcast. Did you guys ever imagine it getting this popular?
No, and I'm hoping it gets less popular. I'm just joking. Just joking. No, the captain and I have a lot of fun doing this show together. It is a lot of work, but it does weigh heavy on our hearts some weeks, covering these cases. But no, we're just two good guys trying to remind people that there is stuff out there happening that needs to be brought to the forefront, and we need answers. We need answers, and we don't have them. The captain and I don't have these answers in the garage. We try
have zero
to come
answers.
But we need answers. And that maybe people listening can come up with them. Maybe somebody out there has something.
You may not have the answers, but you guys are bringing awareness, which is the main thing.
And if you look at the Delphi murders that happened in Indianapolis, and if anybody wants to know, because sometimes we sit around and we wonder, why are we talking about this? Why do we want to put ourselves in this dark, depressing world week after week? But because of the Delphi murders, not because of our show, but because of everybody talking about the Delphi murders, because everybody doing research that they had over 200 arrests, that they have charges against different pedophiles. Over 200 were arrested that people thought possibly were suspects, and they were living too close to our school. They weren't registered. They were, ducking their parole. That's a lot of people arrested and rounded up because people were concerned and try to do their part to make the society better.
True. Again, I want to thank you both for coming on. It's been great, and again, yeah, it's too bad we couldn't get into more, but again, guys, thank you, and listeners, if you've not tuned in to True Crime Garage, go do it. I mean, you guys release episodes pretty much Tuesday and Wednesday. For the most part, right?
Yeah.
And if you just go to like any podcast app, type in True Crime Garage, we have 100 and some shows to listen to. They're all for free, and some of the stuff is up on YouTube, and some of the stuff is you can listen to all the episodes up on our website, truecrimegarage.com.
Yes, and you guys are constantly, pretty much in the top. I've noticed, the top 100 or whatever podcasts on iTunes.
We don't really know. We don't really know what that chart means because we've heard a lot that it doesn't mean much. But like on other podcast apps like Stitcher and stuff, we've been in the top 5. So we're just lucky that we feel honored that people would take the time out to spend with us every week, and so. Well,
guys, keep it up because I thoroughly enjoyed it each week. It gets me through the night. Like I work nights, so I definitely look forward to new stuff from you guys each week. So keep it up and enjoy it. And thank you for coming on the show and talking about it.
Cool. Well, thank you for having us on the show, and God bless you and all the listeners up in Toronto. Theo.
And don't forget, send me an address and I'll send you a care package there of some Ontario craft for the beer fund.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Okay.
Cheers, mates.
All right, take care, guys.
Take care, guys.
Take care, man.
Take care. It's great. Great to have the guys on. It's if you guys have not listened to True Crime Garage, if you love true crime, you got to check it out, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna be. I downloaded some episodes. I'm gonna listen to some of them.
Oh man, binge! It's like Netflix. Binge.
Yeah,
that's what I did, man. I mean, when I first discovered it, I downloaded a whole bunch of episodes, and I'm like, wow, okay. And now I'm all caught up. What am I gonna do now?
Yeah, I know. You gotta wait.
Yeah, you gotta wait for the next week. So they generally release at least one new episode per week. Generally, it's been generally 2 parts. 2 parts. Again, Tuesdays and Wednesdays for the most part. Once again, visit their website at www.truecrimegarage.com and any podcast provider out there, iTunes, Google Play, whatever, Stitcher, bang, go check it out. Awesome. Folks, you know what? We want to wish you all the best over the holiday season here and into the new year. We will see you back here with some new episodes, live shows in hopefully late January. Keep an eye on our Facebook group for more information. But we all wish you the best over the holiday season. Be safe and drink responsibly. And what else, Alex?
I thought you covered everything.
I covered everything.
Yeah.
Okay, guys, take care. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate the support, and have a good evening.
Take care, everyone.
Good night, folks.